So New Year's resolutions. I think this is the time of year that a lot of folks start thinking about the new year, and for whatever reason, the new year, it's not just. I think throughout time, it's likely been a situation where once you kind of see the clock or the calendar that's moving, that you start thinking about your life as a whole, and what is life going to be like moving forward. And I think most people, I think everybody probably wants a life that's ahead of them, that's as good as it can be, that's the best it can be. And most people, there are probably some robots out there who are watching, but for the non-robots who are human, most people who are humans sometimes don't make the best choices and have maybe the highest of goals from a resolution standpoint and fall beneath those goals from a day-to-day life happens. Mm-hmm. And so I think for us here, I think what we've begun to see is that people come in sort of towards the end of the year or with this mindset of a resolution of breathing, which is a weird kind of a new kind of a thing, but I've seen a little bit of that. And the more I see it, the more I'm like, that's where you want to start, man. Like, that's it. Like, if you had to do something to change your life on every different front, it's, taking something or taking you, assuming you're not breathing properly and getting you to breathe properly, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. And the good news is, unlike going to the gym every day or making the right choices at the grocery store, this is a relatively simple, fix here, meaning if there's a question of an issue, then it's a matter of coming in so we can evaluate, and likely there's going to be a fairly simple set of solutions to get you moving on your way, and likely it's not going to impact, meaning it's not going to be much of or any downtime kind of a thing. So it's kind of that perfect storm of, sort of looking at your life and thinking about how it might be better and being able to do something simple to make it better.
Well, I would venture to say that I'd venture to say that most resolutions tend to be quality life decisions, right? So they always center around health for the most part, mm-hmm. And dietary changes and things like that. So if you had to think top three, I'm going to work out more, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to eat better.
Sure.
I'm going to get better sleep, maybe stop smoking, who knows? It depends on what the habits are that people have, but they all tend to be health related, right? So think about if you're not breathing well through your nose and you're having problems sleeping at night and it has to do with your breathing, think about if we get that working, all these other things get a lot easier to tackle for sure. So,
absolutely.
It's the patient who's got sleep apnea that is told to lose weight, and then primary care might wave bye-bye to them and say, go drop 30 pounds. And then they come in here and I'm like, look, that's great if you want to lose weight, but let's get you better sleep. And then you can lose that weight because you have more energy, right? So, it all affects things downstream. And so, prioritize your breathing and your life to get healthier, because this is where it all starts, and then you can tackle these other things a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't mean you can't have more than one goal that way, but I'd say and a lot of times I think it's not always guys, and it certainly can be women as well, is that snoring, it's a chronic issue. I mean, it's chronic and a very prevalent issue that unlike most other, somebody's got to let me know if there's some other medical issue that's like this, where somebody's suffering. So if somebody snores or sleep apnea, they got a throat issue. Their throat is blocked. Mm-hmm. And when they sleep at night, they're creating that annoying sound because their throat is strangling them from the inside. And so the issue that person is suffering with medically is impacting them and those around them. So there are not many, again, I can't think of any other. There might be some other medical issue that impacts others as well as the person that it's happening to. But for a lot of folks who are thinking about the new year and thinking about ways to change things, this is, breathing, and especially breathing well when you're sleeping at night, is something that helps you out from a health standpoint. But it also, I think, we talked about this in the past from a sleep divorce standpoint, is it saves relationships. It really does. If you can sleep soundly and quietly at night, that is more attractive than if you're doing the opposite. So and it's just and we tend to make light of it, and it is sort of, you can make light of it because I guess that's just what we do. But I'd say from a serious standpoint, it's something that nobody wants to snore. Nobody wants to be the snorer. Nobody wants to be the butt of a joke. Everybody wants to be, sort of whatever, part of a community, mm-hmm. part of, sort of something. And so when somebody's snoring, it's isolating. It puts you out on your own island. And I'd say back to New Year's resolutions. I think for many folks, it's about family and sort of being together, and it's hard to be together if you can't breathe properly
Right.
and you can't sleep properly because nobody wants to be around you. So
Or you don't want to go on big trips or vacations or
right,
camping or
because
anything else.
you're embarrassed, and,
Right.
and it's sad that people live their life like this when they don't need to.
Right.
And I'd say for again, I mean it's sort of the stocking stuffer that just it's powerful stuff, and most people I think about sort of, how do you say this? Most people think about resolutions that are more complicated than what we're talking about, but none of those complicated things is as fundamental as getting your breathing checked,
Right.
getting it fixed, kind of a thing.
So knowing that snoring is a throat problem, and let's say for the patient out there that doesn't have sleep apnea, right? So they snore, they make noise, right? Which is a throat issue. Why does getting their nose working better sometimes can improve the snoring?
Which, I mean, so I guess to break it down simply, that's the start of your airway. So if your nose is blocked, then you've got to breathe. And so if your nose is blocked, you either have to pull really hard through your nose to get air come through there, or you've got to drop your mouth open. Either one of those things if somebody has a tendency towards snoring, if your nose is jammed up, then it's going to accentuate that snoring. It's going to create extra turbulence in the back of the throat as you're trying to breathe. If we can take a nose that's jammed up and blocked and we can fix it, then all of a sudden somebody's mouth can stay shut. When your mouth is shut, your tongue gets pulled forward. When your tongue's pulled forward, your airway's more open. So a lot of times, well, it certainly cannot hurt. So somebody snores, they've got a throat issue, and almost assuredly they're going to have a nose issue. So we start at the beginning. We start with the nose, and we start with the whole person. But if we're talking about trying to get somebody fixed, you can't breathe properly if you can't breathe through your nose. So get the nose working. And so some folks, whose throat issues may be more on the mild side of the equation, get the nose fixed, and the throat stuff kind of fades away. Other folks, it's the start of the journey of get the nose fixed, and then we'll have a pathway
Right.
for the throat part.
So again, it's starting here, working downstream, seeing how cards
Yeah.
fall.
Which again, I mean, I don't want to kind of keep beating this horse, but is there another way? I guess let me kind of go this way. We talked about snoring. What other conditions have that impact? I can't think of any.
Well, and even if you think about it from the bottom up approach, right? So a patient walks into your office and maybe their New Year's resolution, and this could be a very real New Year's resolution, is I want to do whatever I can. Maybe it's to lose weight because they snore and they didn't when they were 20 pounds lighter.
Sure.
Right? So they know that those things will change. And so they go see somebody and they look in their mouth and they say, okay, I can put these things in your palate, or I can trim, etc., or do something to your tongue. And it's the patient that does that first that maybe gets a win, but likely maybe not, and then feels disenfranchised with what was done, and maybe they had some discomfort from that procedure and don't want to try anything again, and
Right.
and throw their hands up. Whereas, and that's more of that bottom-up approach, right? If you just look directly at, knowing that snoring is a throat problem, and so we're just going to attack the throat, not ask questions about what's going on with the nose, I think that's a recipe for not success, right? I mean,
Right.
we've seen that when patients walk in. So
Sure.
again, the argument is start from a top down, right? So start with the nose, get that working. Then we may not have to do anything here. And likely we don't if it's not sleep apnea. Oftentimes we don't have to. If it is sleep apnea, everything we do here only empowers us to do better here, and treat this
Right.
area better.
Right.
So I can't make a great argument from working from the bottom up. Now that I know what I know,
Right.
and I've seen it work with patients, and we can still treat them simply and effectively in the office. If we need to go to the operating room, we do it. But patients don't have to have this huge. It makes a big impact on their lives with little impact from a downtime standpoint.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess I'd say, well, this is a separate question, but yeah, why would you not take a nose first approach?
Right.
What's the counter argument there? I'd say the only counter argument is if you can't.
Address the nose.
Correct. So what do you do if you can't address something?
Give somebody a CPAP machine.
Yeah, you bury the nose and
Right.
you just move on.
You bypass it.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and again, it comes down to, I know we talked about origin earlier, but being in independent practice means that as surgeons, as part of this independent practice, we have the power to make the decision and offer a breadth of options for patients as opposed to being limited about what we can offer because maybe it doesn't align with what that big box system wants us to be doing.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, and I think that's where, I mean, at least from a, kind of simple concept, from a resolution standpoint, again, for somebody out there who's, suffering and wondering, could things be any different? Could I be breathing differently? Could I be sleeping properly? The answer to that question is likely yes. And the only way to find out is to really get it checked out. And so like the resolution part of that, should hopefully be a resolution. Like what does resolution, the word mean? Is to resolve, to solve. And, that's our goal. I mean, at the end of the day, our goal here is to, if somebody comes in with an issue, a breathing triangle issue, a nose and throat issue, that we are going to identify it, we're going to explain it, we're going to solve it if it's solvable. And it usually is solvable, and we can usually do that in a pretty low-key manner. And so it's that, I think, what's the resolution? So back to like, hey, what does somebody do if they're resolving to sleep better? It's really get it checked out. Now the challenge is our approach is not, it's not the big box approach. It's the opposite of the big box approach. Our approach is nose first. Nose and throat are where it's at if somebody's got a breathing issue, an upper airway breathing issue. And so we're going to approach it in that, with that mindset, in that order, every single time. And, I guess the deal there is, and it's challenging for me because generally there's so many people out there who are suffering from issues that they shouldn't be suffering with. The challenge is the healthcare system as it exists isn't built to address those folks' concerns.
Right.
And so normally for many things that we deal with, it's a, hey, you got this issue, go anywhere and you get it checked out, wonderful. For these particular issues, you can't do that. You really need to go someplace where the attitude is built with that. Let's start at the beginning. Let's resolve the beginning and move on from there. And that's really that's I think the proper approach, and that's the approach we take. So, yeah.